Welcome back to Black Muse. I'm Clarence Waldron. Before we get started with tonight's guest, who you're gonna love, I wanna give a special shout out and thank you to Howard Sandifer and his wife, Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center. For this video podcast, they said, let's get up close and personal with some of our favorite newsmakers and celebs. So tonight, internationally acclaimed jazz saxophonist Donald Harrison. You know who he is. He's also now a big chief of the Congo Square Nation. He's a true master of the music, and the National Endowment for the Arts, named him a jazz fellow. So let me just stop talking. Let's hear from the man himself, Mr. Donald Harrison. What's up?
Oh, it's just great to be in your company. I've known you, Clarence Waldron, who, in my estimation, is one of our great icons in keeping Black culture, history, and positive movement alive. I met you when you were at Ebony and Jet magazine, such a power broker. I couldn't believe that you were my friend. So it's good to be here talking with you. The music that I love, and I think that the way I play music is to bring all of us together in peace and love and prosperity, and to move to the highest ideals that we can.
Cool. So let's start at the top. You are a big chief of the Congo Square Nation. How did that come about? Who gave you that title? Talk to us. What is that?
Well, in New Orleans, we should all know that there was a place in New Orleans called Congo Square, which is still there today. And that's where Africans could participate in their culture from their homeland. They could do the same things that we're doing in Africa here in New Orleans, and that was a very unique situation. You know, they would toil as enslaved people during the week, but then Sunday was a free day where they could be themselves. And that led to what I call the offshoot cultures of New Orleans. One being jazz culture, second line culture, and benevolent societies, and the other being the tribal culture. So I'm one of the people, like the old musicians, who comes from both cultures. You know, they both inform each other. Without Congo Square, there would be no New Orleans jazz, which influenced the world and changed the scope of the world's culture and the history of the world's music. So I call Congo Square one of the root incubators of New Orleans music, music of the United States, and now the music of the world. And my father was a big chief, but I had to earn the right through going through the rituals and being tested to become a recognized chief and the chief of an important place like Congo Square. But I'm keeping the culture, the musical culture alive, as well as the culture. And I like to think of myself as the missing link in jazz, because the way I look at it, it comes from antiquity. You know, the music of Congo Square comes from the beginning of time. It's connected to that because it comes from Africa. And then later I got to play with every era of jazz musicians, and I tied the whole, in my estimation, the whole history together, and tossed it back like a shiny penny, hopefully.
All right. Okay. Now, we also could call you a doctor because you recently got an honorary doctorate from Berklee College of Music. What was that like for you?
It's an incredible experience to be recognized by your peers, and especially an important institution like the Berklee College of Music, because so many of our greats have matriculated in those halls, from Quincy Jones to myself and Pat Metheny, young drummers like Joe Dyson. So many guys have gone through those halls and gone on to become trendsetters in the music world.
Cool, cool. Now you studied music as well at Berklee. What are the benefits of having studied jazz? Do you therefore know what you're doing, or you know what you want to do? What does it mean?
Well, I think what you learn in school is some of the nuts and bolts, or if you would have it, you learn what the skeleton of jazz is, but you have to live life and play with the great masters to put the flesh on the bones, to make it come to life. So I was fortunate to have both experiences. Berklee is a great school because there's every type of music that you could think about. There's teachers who have been in those worlds. I got with Art Blakey because my saxophone teacher, Billy Pierce, was playing with Art Blakey. So he introduced me to Art Blakey and said, "Oh, this young man, he can really play." And Art Blakey said, "Go get your horn." And then I sat in and he said, "You'll be a jazz messenger one day." But my teacher was playing with Art Blakey. So I had, that was my direct connection to Art Blakey. And a lot of my teachers also told a lot of great people about. First time I played with Sonny Stitt was at the Berklee College of Music. A lot of guys, great musicians came through, and we got to meet them and make connections with them. I remember when the great trumpeter Woody Shaw came to Berklee, he said, "What are you doing in Boston? You need to move to New York right now." But I met him there. The environment at Berklee is great because the teachers, some of them are playing the bands that you want to play in and with the people that you want to find, and they introduce you if they feel that you're worthy of such. And also, there's all types of music. So if you like classical music, but you didn't have a chance to play that, you can go and study that kind of music. If you wanted to engineer, you could study how to engineer. If you wanted to write gospel music or any other type of music, they're open-minded like that. So that's one of the reasons I love Berklee College of Music. But once again, I had to go play with the masters to get the lessons of the masters.
Okay. Speaking of masters, so you were named a jazz master by the National Endowment for the Arts. That had to be a big thrill because so many big masters before you have been honored the same way. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, I was quite surprised because I didn't know that I was nominated to be in the list of what they say is America's most important jazz musicians. And I found out there's only 144 jazz masters at this point. This year they only let in 4 people a year. It'll be 148. But just to be thought of in that realm is mind-boggling. But I have taught a lot of young people, and I think it's the value of doing honest, hard work every day and being diligent. I always chose music and to learn music before everything. So I guess it sort of paid off, and to be recognized by one of the great countries in the history of man as one of their elite players is beyond my comprehension, but I'm happy it happened.
All right. All right. Now you studied your idol, the late Charlie Parker, and he once said, "If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. What did he mean by that, Donald?
Well, if we use the idea of someone writing a story, if you write a story, something that you actually saw, you can get to the details of it better than me. Say, if you wrote a story about what you had this morning for breakfast, you're the person that can tell that story. You have the great detail of that story, of what the food tasted like, how you felt, what color the wall was, how the weather was that day. Where if you asked me to write the story of what you had for breakfast this morning, I would be clueless. So it's just a simple scenario. Everything that you have experienced and lived, you can do that when you're playing music or composing music. It comes through. But each musician is just a sum total of his experiences and the natural gifts that he's developed that a higher power has given him. So Charlie Parker was so brilliant. He summed everything up in one sentence. He's everything, he said, they teach you there's a boundary line to art, but there's no boundary line. But just those two sentences tells you everything that you need to do. And when I read that in high school, I decided to play with every era of jazz musicians and to learn from all the great masters of all different styles of music that I could, so that when I played something, I would have lived it and it would be true, and through doing that, I learned a lot about people, about different cultures, and I learned that we're all the same, and that something that older musicians used to say, which I couldn't understand when I was young, that all music is the same. That is true. I ultimately came to, we all use the same 12 notes and we all use the same rhythms. So we're all using the same ingredients, but we're just doing it our way. And a further thought about something as simple as cooking a chicken. If you take a chicken to China, they're going to cook it the way they cook it. If you take it to Jamaica, they're going to cook it the way they cook it. If you take it to New Orleans, we're going to put some Creole, might make some Creole gumbo with it. You take it to Chicago, y'all hook it up y'all way. But it's the same chicken. So it teaches you, music has taught me through my diligence that human beings, we're all the same. We just have a little different knack the way we do things, but the ingredients are all the same. And then further along, I started looking at quantum physics, and the concept of a multiverse is that a number of universes could have formed together, but they would have the same ingredients, and they would be shaped differently by how that multiverse came together. So then I started thinking of that musically, and now I'm dealing with something I'm calling a multiverse music concept that shows how me learning all of these, learning from all of these masters in different types of ways of using music shows that it's all the same, and how I can take ingredients from any of those styles and create something that's true to those styles, but unique to me. One of the things that started was something called Nouveau Swing in the 80s, which is now, unbeknownst to me, very influential amongst the younger musicians. And a lot of them who took that concept and developed their style from it are becoming the leading lights in the music world today. So, you never know how things are going to turn out, But if everybody stays on their path from a loving perspective, I think that great things can happen for human beings.
Cool. So you have new music coming out. How long do you need to fine tune it at this point?
Oh, we're there. We're mixing now. So I'm in the
Oh.
studio mixing. So yeah, we're mixing the. I took the concept, the multiverse concept, and I created what they call a tropical salsa version of a song. I created a reggae version, or what they call smooth jazz version, a trap hip hop version, a jazz version, a bossa nova from Brazil, and about 10 different ways to look at it. But I'm calling the jazz version the omniverse version of the multiverse because I took everything from all those other styles and put it into jazz. And it has, you can hear all of the other styles coming through, but you can hear that it's jazz and you can hear that it's moving in another direction. So I'm very happy about where we are now with music. And it's another light switch. I keep, going into rooms and turning the light on and seeing something new.
Okay.
Different universes, and then it forms the next path for me.
Funny story. Your father went out and bought you a saxophone when you were a little kid. You didn't ask for it, but he just got it. So you got it, you played it for a little while, and then you just put it in the closet. That's the end of that. What made you pull that saxophone out? And thankfully you did, because here's your whole career. Go ahead.
Yeah, when he bought me the saxophone, well, let's put it like this. When I was about 9 years old, my father was walking past a music store and he saw the saxophone in the window. And he was a Charlie Parker enthusiast, but I don't know if that's the reason he bought it. He just said to himself, my son should have this saxophone. And so he bought it to the house, and I was looking at this beautiful gold instrument, and I played it in elementary school for maybe a year and a half. Then I kids, they don't want to do things for a long time, so I put it in the closet. And then I was listening to the radio, and this beautiful song comes on, the great Grover Washington. It was Mr. Magic. And when I heard Mr. Magic, I remembered I had a saxophone. I said, let me learn how to play Mr. Magic. And then I got the horn out of the closet. And in no time, I couldn't believe it. I was playing Mr. Magic. I couldn't remember the notes, but I figured out how to play Mr. Magic. So immediately when we got back to school, I joined the marching band. Some guys who had an R&B band heard me playing Mr. Magic. And they said, you want to join the band? I said, okay, I'll try it. And then they started paying me money.
Okay.
And then the girls liked me more. I was like, this is fun. You play the horn, you get paid money, and the girls like you more. And I was, in about 10th or 11th grade. And the next thing I knew, I fell in love with it. My father played some Charlie Parker records for me and said, try to learn this. And it was it was a lot harder. So I had to really practice and try to figure out what Charlie Parker was doing. And I fell in love with Charlie Parker. And then I read that statement, if you didn't live it, it won't come out of your horn. And it changed the trajectory of who I am, I believe. And I'm just thankful that that the forces, that a higher power, that God put me on this path. I can't believe it. My father had some kind of premonition, and I think he was right.
All right. Now, did your father play the sax as well, or he played no instrument at all?
My father was a great blues singer, and I wish I had recorded it when he was alive. but he was also a great cultural bearer. He was a chief of 4 different tribes, but he was a legendary chief who taught me what they call the old time ways. And he could sing cultural music uh, like no other. You know? And I'm just fortunate to be around someone like that who took all styles of music seriously. At home, we 1 minute we'd be listening to Ravi Shankar, then we'd be listening to Etta James, Charlie Parker, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, uh, African drummers from the UNESCO series, just just all kind of music at home. James Brown. There was no liking one style of music. There was loving all styles of music.
Okay, okay. And you work with some of the masters of music, of jazz in particular. Miles Davis, any takeaways, any memories of that experience?
Well, Miles changed me because if you went by his house, he would be doing 5 or 6 things at one time, but he would do each one for like 15 minutes and then move to the next. And you could see that he was moving each of these things forward. And he was holding a conversation with you, talking about the music and what you liked and what he liked, who the great players were. You know, he'd be writing a song on the piano, asking your ideas and telling you his. And then he'd start doing a painting, and he would paint, do the painting a little while. Then we might be looking at a movie. So looking at the movie with him, taking time to look at the movie, take some time and look at a newspaper and talk about topics of the day and talk about food and all of these things. You were learning so much. It's like being in a school with 10 teachers at one time.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, he was also open to your ideas. So that made me realize that I was kind of lazy. It changed my work ethic, you know, to a person who tackles a lot of different things. So he was quite a brilliant guy, and he when he looked at you, he looked like he could look through you and see everything about you. Something about his eyes,
Really?
like he had some kind of other wisdom. Like he was, like he had figured out everything about you.
Whoa.
And but he helped you with it. You know, he
How
knew I
so?
liked. Well, he knew that the things I liked and what I was trying to do. So he helped me to see how to do them better. I remember I was having a rough period. Some kind of way he knew, and he said, "Call my manager. He's going to manage you for free." And just different things that he did. You're like, how does Miles know? But I had his manager for free. He didn't charge me any money.
You did? Wow. Okay.
Art Blakey was like that as well.
How
You know?
so? What's your takeaway from Art Blakey?
Well, he was, the guy who could take all these musicians who were working to find their place in the music and groom them on the bandstand to find their voices and be great leaders. And he did this from the 50s until he passed away. You know, the Jazz Messenger family, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, all the people who are Jazz Messengers are brothers because of Art Blakey. And we all were taught the same way. And the way he played the drums, most people call him the musician who had the biggest beat, or a musician who swung the most in jazz. So I always talk about that. How if you didn't learn how to swing or groove playing with Art Blakey, then you couldn't get it. But everybody who played with him they grooving, you know. It's just a lot of things like that about Art Blakey, and just his way of taking one sentence like Bird and getting you to see the whole scope of something.
Deep, deep. So now, did you get some of your first notices when you were touring with him? Your first media attention, did that start with him or not quite?
Well, there was another drummer by the name of Roy Haynes, who I started with when I was 19.
Roy Haynes, okay.
So Roy, yeah, when I started with him, I started getting attention. And then I was also playing with a guy named Brother Jack McDuff.
Ooh, yes, indeed.
But I'm almost positive the older musicians like Roy and Art talk to each other, because before I went with Art Blakey, Roy called me and said, "You're going with my brother now for a while." And I didn't know what he was talking about. So I called him back and said, "Your brother?" He said, "Yeah, just wait a minute, you'll see." Then Art Blakey, I joined his band. And he said, "You understand now?" I said, "Yes, I do." So all of, you know, they were gentlemen, they talked to each other, taken for a while. But I went back with Roy Haynes. I stayed with Roy Haynes for 15 years off and on.
Oh, wow.
Stayed with Art Blakey for 6 years. But they all taught me a lot of things. And I don't know how I got to be so lucky, but I just pinch myself every day, you know, that I was around these great individuals, and the lessons get deeper. The older I get, the deeper the lessons get.
Hmm. Hmm. So Lena Horne, you toured with her. I know you appeared in New York City because I was at that show. So tell me about that experience. How long were you with her?
I was with Lena Horne for 6 years.
6 years. Okay.
Yeah. And we called her the lady.
The lady. All right.
She was another ultimate nurturer and seer, and she was a person who had the biggest heart that you can imagine, and humble. Things she did, you would, when you got to know her, you would never think she had done all of those things. But she would look out for her band, and she wanted me to get more notoriety. So I was shy when I was in the band, 'cause, you know, you're playing with Lena Horne. Wow. So I'd just be looking at her like, oh my God, it's Lena Horne over there. And I'd stand in the back. And then she would come grab me and said, "I want you up front with me. I want the people to see you just as much as me." And I would go up there for a while, and I would go back in the back. She said, "From now on, you standing next to me so people know who you are." And if you look at those videos, you know, if you were at the shows, you would notice that I was standing next to Lena Horne.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I look back upon that, it's another thing that makes me shake my head, that such an icon in civil rights, the movies, as a human being, as an actress, shared her platform with me and thought enough to give me the opportunity to learn to play music with her and to help the world see me as a musician.
Yeah. You and Terrence Blanchard were like a dynamic duo back in the day. Have you talked to him recently?
I haven't. He's quite busy doing a lot of film scores, I guess, and living in his world. But at that time, we started with Art Blakey together. Well, I met him in New Orleans, but when we got to New York, we started with Art Blakey together, and we decided to put a band together. Uh, and I guess it was a dynamic duo, but it was really two bands in one, because I respected his ideas and he respected mine. So I was able to bring my ideas, and we played them, and I did my best on the ideas that Terrence was trying to develop. You know, and we really listened to each other intently and tried to play off each other. So that was when they were calling us young lions.
I
and
remember that. Yep, yep.
and I guess we were the beginning of the resurgence of jazz. I remember when I first got to New York, there were like 5 or 6 guys on each instrument. Nobody wanted to play jazz, but we did, and that teamwork that we had, making sure that jazz became a music that people could play and make a living off again. It worked out. You look at all the new young faces that are playing nowadays. It's too many to keep up with now.
Mm.
We want to grow the music and make sure it has its proper place amongst all the other things that we hear musically in the world today.
I also read that you mentored and worked with Notorious B.I.G. What did y'all work on together?
We worked on a lot of ideas about hip hop music, and we worked on a lot of ideas of how to incorporate other styles of music into hip hop music. And we worked on the idea of the underlying message of what he was doing, uh, being to uplift people, uh, the, the ideals people had about themselves, of people that, you see images of them that says that you're less than, or that you can't achieve. But when you listen to the lyrics of Notorious B.I.G., you think it's one thing, but it's really positive personal reinforcement. And the reason he has all of those murals is because the kids, young people, some of them who may be hopeless, and some of them who need someone to tell them that you're okay and you're special, that message is in the music. That's why he has murals.
Wow. Okay. Now, wasn't John Baptiste a mentee of yours?
Oh yeah, he was an incredible student. I really loved when he was around me, because he was a sponge, and he was uh, a great learner, learned quick. The Notorious B.I.G. learned quick too. And all these, the thing that I will say about all of the students who get to the higher echelon in the music industry that came from me, they were all hard workers. If you gave them something to work on, they would come back understanding that, and understanding more about what you told them, with more questions on how you could do it a plethora of different ways. So it's the same with Notorious B.I.G., the same with Jonathan Baptiste. But to see his trajectory is mind-boggling, and to see him standing on the stage with 5 Grammys, you know,
Yeah.
my life has been unbelievable, to tell you the truth. All these young people that I've been around, and to see them uh, do the things that we worked on to a level that I could not have dreamed. How do you dream of producing the king of East Coast rap? It's impossible. You just work on it, and then something happens and it manifests. But those, see those positive messages, like I'm saying, thought of as a fool in school, but I'm not, sky's the limit, all these messages inside the music. And Jonathan Baptiste messages, be human, stay human. The main thing he says is be a human being. So to see these positive messages that all these young people are putting in music, and to know that we talked about it, and that, it was their job to do things that I couldn't do, but to be a part of it in any way it's just a beautiful thing. And hopefully all of these lessons will pass down to society, because these things need to be part of the conversation and need to be part of what we do.
Now, your nephew is also a mentee of yours. Yes, Mr. Christian Scott. How is he doing? I know he's doing everything, but I know you're real proud of him.
Nephew Christian Scott, Atunde, he is incredible talent, and he quite busy these days and quite popular. He's been on the cover of Downbeat more than me. Actually, I've never been on the cover of Downbeat, so I'm proud of him. But the thing that really makes me happy is he states that the things that he's working on are because of the nouveau swing I created that gave him the ideas to take music to another level. But it's the root of his music. But he's moving in his own direction now and creating a new legacy for the music. And I'm always happy when I get a phone call from him and he tells me, "Unc, I love you," and I tell him I love you too, man, and keep up the good work. And he has a lot of fan base, man. He asked me to play with him, and the place was packed, and they were all singing his songs, and I was just elated to be in the middle of all those young people. It's always a great thing.
Yeah.
To I play with all the older guys, but now the younger guys are calling me to play with them, and I'm learning stuff from them. I taught them, and now they're teaching me. Art Blake used to say, "A fair exchange is no robbery," because he said he was learning from us as well. So I feel like I'm in that position where I learned from all these old masters, and the young people that I learned from are showing me different ways to look at it from their experiences. Beautiful. Full circle.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you recorded several, big albums, including, of course, Nouveau Swing. What was the making of that? Were you deliberately trying to create a new sound? Did you think that it was going to catch on the way that it has?
Yeah, when I did Nouveau Swing, I was just putting the music that we grew up dancing to, because our generation was dancing to all the music in a jazz context, acoustic jazz context. One day I heard that Art Blakey and James Brown go together. And then I started writing the music like that. And those recordings stayed on the radio, the two recordings of that, initial recordings of that style, and unprecedented 2 years each. Because usually jazz records last about 3 months, but each of them were on the radio forever. And you never know how something is going to be thought of by people who listen to music. But fortunately, audiences loved it, and I had a revelation that I was playing music that came from the people, from living with the people. So my respect for the people and different cultures, it manifests in the music. So maybe that's why they had a natural affinity for it, because it was their music in a jazz context. So they felt and heard themselves in the music. So what I do is just a back and forth. Now I know what they say when they say I'm playing people music, because it comes from the people.
Comes from the people. Do you have any favorite albums that you recorded that you say, this is the real essence of me? This is one of my favorite albums. Do you have, because I was playing things today and I couldn't even decide which one I would pick. Do you have a favorite album?
Ooh, that's a hard question, because each one is like a child, you know, for that moment. And I don't know how to choose a child that you love the most, but I think when Nouveau Swing came out, that felt good. When the record I did with uh, Terrence Blanchard came out, we did New York Second Line. That felt good. Just in things I did with Eddie Palmieri, those records. It's all the guy, Art Blakey, so many people. You know, I even had some bootleg stuff with Notorious B.I.G. We had, it's just all those things create the whole. I don't know if I have a favorite. I have a lot of things that I love. And the thing that I'm always thinking of is creating what I'm feeling right now. That's always the most important thing, to get out what I'm feeling right now. It's like until you can get it out of you, it's like a weight, that you. It's a beautiful thing, but until it comes out, it feels like you're being held back. So I'm always trying to get these ideas to the outside of me, and hopefully they will be understood like the things in the past that help myself and younger musicians and people find a sense of community. And for me, music is about creating a sense of community, about making people feel joy in their lives, which is what was happening in Congo Square. Going right back to Congo Square, when those people who had the worst existence you could imagine every day, when they got to Congo Square, it was their time of transcendence, where all of that stuff went away, and they went into another realm, and they were free, and the souls were free, and they were at peace. So I always think everyone who heard that music, they kept coming back to hear it, because once you're free, even if you weren't going through all things that the people who were creating these sounds of freedom uh, and transcendence, you still had something to bear. That moment of freedom and peace touched the world. So everyone wanted to have that for themselves. And that's what music does. And that's what those enslaved people in Congo Square created for the world. So that's the key right there for me.
All right, cool, cool. I just got a few more questions real quick. You're the co-founder and artistic director of an internship program. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I was asked if I could do anything in New Orleans, what would it be? I said I wanted to pass down the things that I learned from older musicians to younger musicians. So I started a program uh, at Tipitina's where the focus was to develop young musicians who would become professionals while they're in high school, attain a professional level of artistry, but also uh, be equipped to get a scholarship to college if they so wanted to pursue that. So we've had millions of dollars worth of scholarships through the program, and all the professional musicians that came out of the program if you look at it. So I'm happy that all these students are doing great things in the business. Some of them are million-selling, producing uh, artists who work with everybody from Beyonce to Lil Wayne. And when I talk to some of the guys, they say they teach the lessons to other producers. So they tell me I have a whole crew of people that I haven't met yet. So one day maybe we'll have a party and get together. But just all, every time you teach one person and they get to a certain level, they teach another group of people. So it it's like
Okay.
a snowball effect, all these young people going out there. When you look at Jonathan Baptiste, he has a group of people that he's helping. And my nephew, Esperanza Spalding, all these guys and ladies who have their bands now, they're doing the same thing. So it's exponential growth that we're creating, and more love.
Years ago, when I was with Jet Magazine, I asked you to name some of the new voices, the new jazz folks coming up. And you immediately said Esperanza Spalding. She was and look at her now. If we asked you that today, who should be on our radar? Who is up and coming, do you think? Do you hope?
I'm thinking of a saxophonist, but I'm getting older now. The names get, but I'll say this: there are so many nowadays. It's mind-boggling, and they're all worthy. But and they call me, and some of them play with me. I know there's a drummer who plays with me by the name of Brian Richburg. He's going to be great. But Joe Dyson, who was also my drummer, he's playing with Pat Metheny now. So two are special drummers that even the older drummers say, oh, these guys got their own style already.
Okay.
They're still connected to the lineage of drummers. So I'm gonna say those two guys because I'm watching them right now closely. Joe Dyson on drums and Brian Richburg on drums. Two names to look out for in the future.
Okay. And last question. These years are sweeping by. You made a reference that I've known you for about 30 years or whatever, how long it's been. Have you thought about your legacy? How would you want to be remembered?
My motto has always been, do the best you can and get out the way, So I just want to do as much good work as I can while I'm here and leave the best example of who I am. And always remember this, that Art Blakey told us, always said he's the king of one-liners. He used to say, light your candle, and if your candle lights the way for one person so they can make it, then your life is worthwhile. So I just light my candle every day.
Bam. Very good. Anything else you want to share? Well, I got you here. Anything else on your mind today?
No, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to talk about this stuff. You guys taking your time to listen to a few words from me. I appreciate you more than you can imagine. And I appreciate you for being my friend all of these years.
Absolutely.
And everybody that you have, you are a national treasure, brother.
Oh, look at you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I know what you've done.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.